Hello everyone, welcome to this series on cultural studies. And in this video, we are going to discuss biblical studies. Introduction. In the past 2 decades, biblical studies have witnessed significant and often controversial developments, primarily due to the influence of literary and critical theory on the understanding of biblical texts. These theories have reshaped how scholars view the circumstances of the composition of these texts and their subsequent interpretation throughout history. The integration of approaches such as myth criticism, feminist theory, semiotics, structuralism, deconstruction, and reader response criticism has not only provided new readings of individual biblical texts but has also offered fresh perspectives on the Hebrew Scripture, the New Testament, and the entire Bible. Influence of literary and critical theory. Literary and critical theories have deeply impacted the study of the Bible. Myth criticism, feminist theory, semiotics, structuralism, deconstruction, and reader response criticism have all been employed to explore biblical texts in new ways. These approaches aim to understand not just the content but also the context, structure, and underlying messages of biblical narratives. By applying these theories, scholars can delve into the multi-layered nature of biblical texts, revealing the complex interplay of themes and ideas. Historical context. The incorporation of literary criticism into biblical studies is not a recent phenomenon. As Stephen D. Moore notes, literary criticism has been a component of biblical criticism almost since its inception. However, the phrase, "the Bible as literature," has often been used defensively against scholarly approaches that draw on literary theory. This opposition stems not only from the clash between secular literary scholars and practicing Jews and Christians, but also from the theoretical divide between formalist literary critics and textual scholars. Formalist critics seek aesthetic unity in every text, while textual scholars, guided by the documentary hypothesis, view the Bible as a mosaic of texts composed at different times and later edited into a somewhat seamless whole. Contributions of Matthew Arnold and Northrop Frye. Matthew Arnold played a significant role in framing the controversy surrounding the literary study of the Bible. In his work, God and the Bible, Arnold argued that the language of the Bible is not scientific but literary, characterized by poetry and emotion rather than precise scientific description. Northrop Frye, influenced by Arnold and Vico, provided extensive literary theoretical studies of the Bible. His works such as Anatomy of Criticism, Creation and Recreation, and The Great Code, The Bible and Literature, explore the Bible's literary landscape through the concept of typology. Typological reading interprets earlier stories as completed and given meaning by later ones, establishing a profound connection between the Old and New Testaments. Meyer-Sternberg's contributions. Meyer-Sternberg's The Poetics of Biblical Narrative marks a significant milestone in biblical studies. Sternberg employs modern literary criticism to analyze biblical narratives, arguing that the Bible generates its own narratology. His approach suggests that reading the Bible is a dynamic act that integrates ideological, historical, and aesthetic dimensions. Sternberg emphasizes that literary critics can significantly contribute to biblical study while also receiving beneficial insights from the Bible, particularly in narrative techniques and interpretation methods. Robert Alter's contributions. Robert Alter's contributions to biblical studies, particularly through his works The Art of Biblical Narrative and The Art of Biblical Poetry, have been instrumental in understanding the Bible's narrative strategies and formal systems. Authors focus on the values and moral vision embodied in biblical narratives, highlights the Bible's complex moral and psychological realism. This analysis of biblical poetry, particularly the technique of parallelism, underscores the intricate relationship between literary form and meaning, which is crucial for translation and interpretation. Gerald Hammond on Bible translations. Gerald Hammond's The Making of the English Bible provides a detailed examination of the evolution of Bible in English from the Renaissance to the authorized King James Version of 1611. Hammond praises the early translators, particularly William Tyndale, for their ability to balance literalness with flexibility. These translators sought to preserve the poetic ambiguities of the original texts while adapting English to Hebraic idioms. Hammond contrasts this with modern translations, which often prioritize scholarly precision over the literary qualities of the text. Midrash and literary interpretation. The intersection of biblical narrative art with interpretive processes is a focal point for scholars exploring Midrashic tradition. Midrash involves interpretation that becomes a new narrative, embodying the earlier text within a new context. This approach is distinct from topology and emphasizes the dynamic relationship between exegesis and literature. David Stern and other scholars highlight how Midrash transforms interpretation into a literary act, creating a unique language and voice for the text. Frank Kermode's analysis. Frank Kermode addresses one of the most perplexing questions in biblical studies: the limits of interpretation. In works like The Genesis of Secrecy and The Art of Telling, Kermode explores whether interpretive freedom is constrained by institutional norms. He argues that the plain sense of biblical texts depends on the imaginative activity of interpreters and that Protestant hermeneutics insists on tradition as formative. Kermode's insights underscore the necessity of understanding tradition in seeking encounters with ancient texts. Feminist criticism. Feminist critics like Miyake Bell and Alicia Ostriker challenge traditional patriarchal interpretations of the Bible. They argue that biblical narratives often erase female power as seen in Proverbs 8, where wisdom is personified as a woman present at creation. Feminist readings uncover these marginalized voices, highlighting the Bible's complex interplay of gender and power. This perspective enriches biblical studies by bringing attention to previously overlooked dimensions of the text. Conclusion. The dynamic response of the ideological, historical, and aesthetic dimensions of the Bible is central to modern biblical studies. The integration of literary and critical theories has not only enriched the interpretation of biblical texts, but has also expanded the scope of both biblical and literary studies. By viewing the Bible through various theoretical lenses, scholars can uncover deeper layers of meaning, enhancing our understanding of these ancient texts. This interdisciplinary approach continues to shape and redefine biblical scholarship, ensuring its relevance and vitality in contemporary academia. So this was the discussion on the term biblical studies. We will meet in the next video and discuss some other topic. Until then, goodbye and thank you.